What you are seeing now is New Zealand, located in the South Pacific. It lies approximately 4,000 kilometers away from Australia. The country is home to continuous mountain ranges, breathtaking scenery, and high-quality organic food. The famous film The Lord of the Rings was shot in these beautiful locations across New Zealand. New Zealand's climate is very similar to that of the United Kingdom. Summers are not too hot, winters are long, and there is considerable rainfall. But even so, New Zealand's population is less than 7% of that of the United Kingdom. If you look at a map of New Zealand, you will notice that around 80% of its area is empty and uninhabited. 70% of New Zealand's population lives in the northern part of the country, and within that northern region, the vast of the people are concentrated in just one city, Auckland. Given such a pleasant climate, stunning landscapes, relatively low cost of living, and high quality of life, why is 8% of New Zealand empty? First, looking at a world map, you can see that New Zealand is very far from other continents. That is to say, if you depart from Karachi or Mumbai, you would have to fly across the entire Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean, taking 18 to 22 hours to reach New Zealand. So the question arises, how did humans first reach such a remote island? There are several theories about this. According to the official New Zealand website, around 1320 to 1350 AD, over 1,000 years ago, the Maori people discovered this place. The islands in the South Pacific are also known as the Polynesian Islands. According to official records, the Maori left their original homes around the Polynesian Islands and sailed in large canoes to New Zealand. But the question is, why did the Maori leave their original islands to come to New Zealand? After reviewing historical accounts, we found that according to some Maori oral traditions, New Zealand was not first discovered in the 13th century, but 500 years earlier, by a Maori man named Kupe. Kupe was a fisherman who supported himself and his tribe by fishing. However, an incident occurred. Whenever he cast his net, an octopus would drive the fish away, leaving him empty-handed. Since fish were their only food source, this created a serious survival crisis. So Kupe and some of his companions decided to sail out and search for another island, one that could provide ample food and fresh water. For this quest, Kupe led about 20 to 25 people into the South Pacific. After several days of sailing, they spotted an island filled with tall mountains. This was New Zealand. The island was abundant in seafood, sheep, and fruit and had no other human inhabitants. For Kupe and his people, it was the perfect new home. He sent a few companions back to the Polynesian Islands to spread the news about this island. And so the Maori began to settle in New Zealand. Until the 17th century, the Maori lived peacefully in New Zealand. Because they were so isolated from the rest of the world, they had no enemies and faced no threats. But this peace did not last long. At that time, Western countries were dispatching explorers around the world to discover new islands, countries, and continents in order to expand their influence. In this process, a Dutch explorer named Abel Tasman was sent to the South Pacific to search for a legendary southern continent, because Europeans at the time believed such a landmass must exist there, which would open up countless opportunities for European nations. In Zealandia, Tasman sighted New Zealand, but when he tried to land, he encountered fierce resistance from the Maori and was forced to withdraw. Later, in 1769, a British officer named James Cook, while also searching for this southern continent, arrived in New Zealand. Cook's men again clashed with the Maori in large-scale conflicts, and many Maori lost their lives, forcing Cook to retreat. However, this time he drew a detailed map of New Zealand and his entire voyage route. It was through this map that Europeans in the 18th century began to arrive at the island in greater numbers. This time, the British used trade and profit as bait and began establishing ports in the area. Within just 100 years, the British had gained full control over New Zealand. In Mildingdizet the Treaty of Waitangi was signed between the British and the Maori. After that, New Zealand officially became part of Europe and the British Empire. At that time, the Maori population was around 100,000. But over the next 100 years, the population did not grow. Instead, it plummeted from 2,000 to just 7,000. There were two main reasons for this. First, when Europeans arrived, they brought with them diseases that were common in Europe at the time, to which the Maori had no immunity. As a result, after European settlement, many Maori fell ill and died in large numbers. Second, during the 19th century, New Zealand became a violent place. Just 5 years after the Treaty of Waitangi was signed, a series of wars broke out between the British and the Maori over land ownership. These wars lasted for 40 years, claiming countless Maori lives, until the conflicts finally ended in 1895. By then, most of the major Maori leaders had been killed, and the Maori resistance movement had been severely crushed. At that point, the British realized that if they did not include the local population in the development process, New Zealand would not be able to move forward. Therefore, immediately after the wars ended, the British government allowed locals to participate in elections and gave them equal say in all development projects. And so New Zealand finally entered a phase of peace and development. But as we mentioned at the beginning of this video, why is so much of New Zealand still empty, with nearly everyone living on the North Island? First, the southern regions of New Zealand are empty because it is almost impossible to live or build there. The South Island is covered with mountains and towering peaks throughout, and the land conditions are extremely poor. Even building basic infrastructure like roads is nearly unfeasible. The land east of the mountains is too barren to support irrigation. Therefore, the vast majority of New Zealand's population resides on the North Island. To address the population shortage, the New Zealand government relaxed its immigration policies after World War II. Before the war, New Zealand banned non-white immigrants, which kept its population stagnant until the 1950s. After these restrictions were lifted, immigrants from Asia, especially China, the Philippines and India, began arriving in New Zealand. At last, the country's population began to grow as needed. Today, 20% of New Zealand's population consists of immigrants or people born outside the country. Most immigrants live in and around Auckland, which is also why Auckland has become one of the world's most immigrant-friendly cities. However, due to limited land supply and high housing demand, the government now offers subsidies of up to 8,000 NZD to encourage people to move from Auckland to areas about 100 kilometers away, in order to ease pressure on the housing market and bring home prices back to normal levels. One very interesting fact is that New Zealand's economy relies heavily on agriculture, especially livestock exports. The North Island, with its rainy climate, has vast expanses of fertile green land, which is why countless sheep, goats, and cattle are raised there. New Zealand has a population of about 5 million, but it is estimated that there are nearly 30 million sheep. As a result, New Zealand is the world's largest exporter of lamb and wool, with 80% of its meat being exported. In 2000, meat exports alone brought New Zealand $40 billion in revenue. New Zealand is the 50th largest economy in the world, and agricultural exports are its main source of income. The fact that meat exports alone generate $46 billion is astonishing and should serve as an inspiration to other agricultural nations.